Hello, everyone. It's Kenyon here, Basketball Rewind. Today, we're coming to you after one tough week.
A
The
glorious
Raptors
week. A
won
glorious week.
zero games. Zero games. As I always say after each of these losses, they find ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And boy, what a week. We Our offense, is it just me or is our offense just dying? I guess today, I mean, I don't really consider overtime. Like when you factor in overtime, it's not really fair because like it automatically the extra few minutes bump up your offense. But it feels like our offense has started to slowly taper off and die. Beyond, I'm gonna get you in first. Your thoughts on the week, um, and we'll go from there.
Oh boy. First thing for the record, I think Coach and myself had 0-3 as the week. Boy, they made it interesting. I'll give them that, man. But they held firm. 0-3 it is. This team, I think the frustration. I know we've talked offline about this. I think the frustration in your voice, and it's the disconnect from this fandom on exactly what this team is versus what they think it is. And I think that drives you up the wall. I say, like the
Yeah, it
Frozen.
just drives me nuts. Like
No, it does.
I won't go on a rant, but it's like I want to go on a rant.
I
But it's
know.
like it just drives me up
And I'm trying
the
to tell you to take
wall.
the
It's just
Frozen
like, oh, well,
mentality.
Scotty's gonna come back, and it's all gonna be okay. We're gonna win 5 games in a row. It's like where are you gonna be doing that?
Take the Frozen mentality, man. Let it go, man. Let it go. All right. This is all good, man. It's all gravy, man. It's all gravy. Um,
You almost said Grady, but it isn't all Grady.
it is all Grady, which let's get to that. Interesting. This was like the week of the shrinking Grady. It started off looking real good. He dropped like 32, a career high.
With that
And
last name, you may not want shrinkage,
you're right.
folks.
Exactly. Maybe the wrong person to make that reference. And then game two, deflation continues in this case here, where Grady in this case here, he scores 16 something points, gets the free throw line quite a bit, shows the aggression. Tough night at the parlor, but still, still showing ways to find ways to score. And then we get to the game we just finished watching just now, which we had just an interesting conversation with some Raptor fans, and the debate was on, and I discussed why in God's name, in any universe, Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 60, 62, how in the world is Jakob Pertl getting twice as many shots as Grady did on a team that's going absolutely nowhere? I don't know. I thought we were in the world of development.
I mean, beyond you think about it, we were having discussions about Grady Dick and possibly RJ Barrett as first options, maybe, possibly, maybe, please.
Who knew?
And all of a sudden, it's like, no, scratch all that. There's no debate. It's Pirtle's team.
Hold my beer or hold my drink here. it's Pirtle time. Exactly. It's Pirtle time. Unbelievable, man.
I mean, you know what? That actually works because this coach does like pizza. So, cowabunga.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were just discussing just before we came on, and we saw it with Nick Nurse in some ways too, and we definitely see it with his coach. How Jakob Pertl is like some 7-foot Austrian security blanket that they just feel all warm and fuzzy, and they gotta get their pacifier for just to make them feel good. That whenever things get tough, let's get the yak. I'm like, really? What are we doing out here? And of course, if I'm the opposing coach, I'm like, yeah, have at it. I think you just made a comment about how Joe Mazzulla said, give him well wishes and compliments about Yacht. I'm sure he is. You might be buying him a gift in this case when the night's done. He's like, yeah, man, Yacht's fantastic. Played for suckers, man. Played for suckers, man. But I'll get more to that later on, man. I'll hand it off to Coach.
Coach, it's all on you now. I know you're thinking long.
Well, as I said to you guys earlier, with Hurdle in this game, I actually don't have much of an issue with him getting the shots that he got because I thought a lot of them were decent shots. He was making them. You feed the hot hand, but key word here. Uh, when we make twos, they make threes. That comes back to roster construction. They have just a whole. They shoot 63s a game, and quite frankly, it's a little boring to watch. But at the end of the day, because everybody shoots threes today, and we, quite frankly, don't shoot many of them, it's going to be really hard to win the basketball game. And with all the injuries and this play style, how we run offense, this 1-5 offense is beyond as mentioned, and with two centers who won't guard 20 feet out, it's really hard to win games because you're basically playing 4-on-5.
Just saying when your point guards shoot, you can't shoot. In this case, you're pretty much 3-on-5 most nights.
Yeah, it's these issues start to compound on one another, right? Where it's like I think I described it to you guys where it's a bit of a house of cards that's starting to collapse, and like there's no amount of like Scotty Barnes that's coming back that's gonna like fix this, because like what do we do at the end of the games? You're not usually giving it to Scotty Barnes like for those last second shots. You're not. That's not what we do. We give it to Pirtle. And Scotty Barnes can't ISO anyways. So I don't know what's going on. I think, Coach, you hit on something which kind of brings us to, we're just going to jump ahead here, but there was a play against Detroit. You guys pointed this out. We've talked about this challenge that we've had a number of times, but we saw it on full display with Bruno manning the center spot. Whew. We will put this play up on the screen, but let's kind of talk through it. So you have like essentially, I thought it was RJ originally, but it was Garrett Temple on the court bringing the ball up. Sighting of Garrett Temple for once. I guess his back is feeling better, or maybe he passes Elsat or whatever the heck. I don't care. Passes it to Bruno at the top of the arc. And Coach points out to me, Coach, what did you say about Bruno and where he's looking?
Okay, he's not even looking at the hoop. He's looking to the right of him. And when the audience, we'll encourage the audience to freeze it if they're able to, and then you'll just see what's wide open. The basket.
I'll freeze it for the audience, and I'll put a big circle.
Well, the other thing too is that when you watch the play out, look how aggressive Detroit is playing the passing lanes. They're not even thinking of him as a threat. They're all over everyone in the passing lane. So when you ask the question, how come we're turning over the ball so much? You're putting the ball in the people in hands that can't handle it. And then because they're not a threat offensively, it makes now the margin of error even tighter and makes the windows tighter for passes because everyone's on top of your guys when they're cutting. Yes. And to your point, the house of cards theory plays out because going back to the initial discussion about Gradey, if you're going to run Gradey off a bunch of screens and backdoor cuts, guess what? If you got Pirtle and Bruno the ones passing the ball and they're not respecting him, well, everyone's going to be looking to play the passing lanes for where Grady's going. So you got to find a way to simplify ways to get the ball to him a lot easier. Because now that trick's out now. Coaching staffs have made the adjustment. So now and this is the point I had in the discussion we just had in space just now. I am not of the opinion in this case here that if you have a key player on your board and that coach on the opposing side wants to take that player off the board, you don't just be resigned and say, okay, oh, well, we'll just remove him off the board. You got to find a way to adjust in this case to make sure he is in play so you can use him some other way to get to your objective. And sorry, that's the way coaching is in my mind. Like you can't take away my best players and say, oh, I'll just find someone else. And this team doesn't have the option to do so.
So this is where I think that the disconnect is amongst the fan base at times where how development should look. And to your point, you have a guy like Gradey. Okay, the first adjustment was start using him off ball, going off screens. That's great. He's a movement shooter. He's able to move in patterned movements to get free. Great. Excellent adjustment to whoever it was. After that, now you have to, once the opposing team keys in on that, now you have to find new ways to utilize him, to continue to get him shots, to put him in spaces, because eventually you hope they are a playoff team one day, and you will be faced with those exact same circumstances where people are taking pieces off the chessboard, taking a bishop or a rook or whatever off the chessboard. What is the next move that you have to make? You have to sometimes think 5 steps ahead, and we're not thinking 5 steps ahead.
Exactly. So tonight people say, "Oh, Gradey had a tough night." He scored 9 points and he had a tough night. Derek White's on him. Fine, he's going to start getting some of the best defensive. You mentioned it already that he had McDaniels on him about 2 weeks ago. He's going to get the best shot of everyone's team when it comes to defensive help. But what I noticed that even just in the box score, one of his highest assist totals was tonight, I believe. I think he had 5 assists tonight, right? So that is telling me in this case here, he is drawing attention, which on this team, that's like pretty much trying to find water in the desert. That we actually have somebody, we finally have somebody that draws attention, that can start creating for folks.
That RJ Barrett thing that you saw, the pass, it didn't lead to a score, but you pointed it out ahead of me, and that RJ Barrett kick away, that was impressive by Gradey.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that was I think one thing Grady's he has a real natural instinct for. He's very good at manipulating the ball, and he has a really good way that he could do a lot just off of a screen, and he could do a lot off of a pump fake, which is like almost like a bit of a kind of like a lost art in some ways. Like a lot of things we always talk about entry passes, a lost art. There's another lost art. The old-fashioned pump fake. God bless you, DeMar. Like you got a good pump fake. Dwayne Wade was very classic. You got a good pump fake. Boy, you could do so much work with that pump fake. It's not even funny. It can set you up for a relocation for a better shot. It can set you up for a drive. It can set you up for a pass. It can shift the defense if you got a good pump fake. It could do a lot of things for you when you have a good pump fake. I don't know. This guy in Chicago wears number 23. He's pretty good at it. Once in a while you do the old that one on you, and it's like everyone just start jumping. Like, what?
Gradey had a fake out in Detroit where he faked someone out almost out of their damn shoes.
Right, exactly. Where you can start seeing where the defense's double is coming from. Jordan would do that on purpose just to see, like, oh, this is what you want to do. The pump fake is such a lost art because no one really uses the pump fake anymore. And I think Grady's one of the few guys in this case, due to maybe the fact that he's not the most athletically gifted guy, he has to use some of these tricks. And that pass he hit there for RJ, even though RJ didn't complete it, he set up for a Pearl offensive rebound. Voila. Amazing when the ball gets in the Grady's hands, how all of a sudden openings happen all over the place. Because two guys came to Gradey.
And speaking of RJ, he had triple-double tonight. Like he had 25 points, 15 assists, that's going to be a career high for me, 10 rebounds. Now, 4 of 9 from the free throw line. That's below 50%. Look. This has been a thing with RJ ever since he came over, because I think he was about 80% with the Knicks, oddly enough. He's improved in every facet of his game since he's been here in Toronto. But it seems like the free throw percentages has gone down.
Is it the workload, you think, Coach?
Even last year, though, like when even Siakam and Scotty were here, the free throw percentage was still low.
So is it?
Some of it could be. Some of it could be.
Like, I mean, that's something to consider. I mean, like, I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility. Like,
it could be. It's interesting because it's just his 3-point percentage is up. All of his percentages up except free throws. So I don't know if that's a mental thing at the free throw line or what it is. You could be right. It's just getting more coverage. Because, well, who's left? It's him and Gradey, more or less. So I think what's interesting about this with how abysmal this has been, Gradey's development and what you're learning about RJ. You never saw this with the Knicks. You never saw this at Duke. You're starting to see more aspects of his game that we just have never seen. And this is going to be key to know moving forward. I know you guys know what I mean.
Hey, Coach, man, I think we're getting to a point now where we can start naming names here, man. This isn't like some type of thing like, Harry Potter. We can start naming names now, I think, man.
Voldemort.
Exactly. I think the reality is starting to hit even the hardest of hardcore Raptor fans of the fate of this team in this season.
I'll just say this. There's a lot of interesting things that are happening, and they're happening very quickly. Mind the pun with that as well. That's not exactly who we were talking about anyways, but yeah. So let's clear it up. The question, which keeps getting asked, is when Scotty's healthy, who's going to the bench? Assuming that he comes back before, quickly, I should say. Yeah, I agree, Coach.
I think this would be, and I heard that come up tonight in this case here. I think you could pretty much ship Darko and this whole management team if they decide that having Ochai stay in the starting lineup for Gradey would be, in this case, something that would be better, the betterment for this team.
I might have to actively advocate for something.
Yeah, that is pretty much a derelict of duty in this case here. That would be brutal. Absolutely brutal. And I think, and quite honestly, there's a lot of biases. I just put it this way. There's a lot of biases in this case. You find out a lot. And I think
you got to be careful.
I know, but I'm going to say it this way. I'm going to be very delicate. Do that, how Gradey looks. There's a lot of biases that I find. Ever once last year, you ever heard anyone talk about, boy, we really got to move Gary Trent out of the starting lineup? Would anyone say Gary Trent's a better defender?
I forget who it was, but there's someone that was like, they would constantly advocate. They're like, man, the loss of Gradey is really going to kill us. And I was like, this dude is lucky to get like 10 minutes sometimes on the Bucks, okay?
Right. So I'm just saying, there's guys out there right now. I can name like 10 dudes off the top of my head that some of them actually start on teams that can't defend anywhere close to Gradey did, okay? All right? One, for example, he got sent to the bench like last week. That's D'Angelo Russell. All right? So they put him on the list. All right? That's one. I just mentioned Gary Trent Jr. That's two. How about Malik Beasley? How that looking for you? That's three. I keep going down the list. Tons of dudes I sit here and watch every night. And I don't hear anyone talking about their players saying, boy, he really should go to the bench in this case here. No. Grady's not going anywhere. Grady shouldn't be going anywhere. There's a bunch of hogwash, malarkey, whatever you want to call it, nonsense. Okay, enough. All right? We played 8 seasons. 8 seasons with DeMar DeRozan. God bless him, I'm as big as a DeMar fan anyone. DeMar, we know in this case, DeMar could barely catch a cold, let alone go and play defense against somebody when he's ready. Please spare me with all of a sudden now, everybody now wants Ron Artest on our team. Like, enough. Or Meta World Peace, my apologies, man, I'm showing my age. Enough with this nonsense. Like, give me a break. On a team that gives up 125 on the regular, I'm sorry. All the other players in this case here, boy, they're such shining examples of defense. My apologies. How dare you, Gradey? When we got all those locked up, defenders we got on this team, like, give me a break.
You know what's crazy? We're actually fielding the best defensive lineup, actually, or we have been for huge parts of the season, and the defense is now like collapsing. I mean, it collapsed after like the first game, but I mean, like, at this point, it's collapsing, and how does Darko respond? Okay, hey, Jason Tatum. Have at her with Gradey Dick. Like, what are we doing?
I thought Gradey, for his most part, held his own.
He did, but it's just like, what happened to the Mobo stuff?
Right, but that's my point. Because the thing that people get, once again, appearances are deceiving. The thing that Gradey does is, Grady's a disciplined defender. All right? The Sacramento game was a perfect example of that. Mobo's out there trying to block every shot of DeMar DeRozan's, and he's sitting in the pine beside Darko 5 minutes later. Okay? They tried Davion Mitchell. He's too small. He's getting whooped. They tried Gradey late in the game, and Grady's at least make him say, you know what? You're going to have to hit a tough 17-footer over me. And you have to miss it. That's all you're asking for, which happened a few nights tonight with Tatum. On the last play, he didn't have Gradey on Tatum. He put 6'4", Abaji on him, therefore playing into Tatum's greatest strength. I will get the opportunity to have my step back now because I don't have a 6'8" guy on there. That's it. So it's just nonsense. Just absolute nonsense. I don't know, Coach. You're the coach, man. What do you think about what's going on?
Look, it's a mess right now. You're last in defense. Let the kid develop. Let RJ develop. Let Ochai develop. Mobo, some of these guys. You need to find out what exactly you have. And the strides that Gradey has made from year 1 to year 2, I can only think of one person maybe who had a similar first year to his second year, and that was DeRozan. I can't really think of anyone else, at least in the last 20 years.
For this team?
Even Siakam never had that big a jump from year 1 to 2. He
Year
had a
two?
big jump from year 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was McGrady was the same thing. So yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen, I haven't, not that I can recall anyway, someone from the rookie year basically just playing 3 months. Let's just call it for what it is. He played after the new year to the end of the year, and then how he's come back, what he's looked like. Now, some of this is help with the injuries. He's getting more touches, getting more usage, but he's still showing up, and he's still showing what he did over the summer.
Was also capitalizing on that.
Yes.
Now, Coach, you've mentioned. I'll actually credit you and James. So, James Welch, shout out, Coach. You also brought this up independently today. You mentioned how you hope that there aren't too many parallels between Brett Brown and the current coach of the Raptors.
Hmm.
I remember Brett Brown almost looking like Brian Burkett sometimes in press conferences. But can you just elaborate on what you meant by that? And then I'm sure Beyond will chime in as well.
I don't think it's going to be that bad, but we all know the process Sixers, how historically bad they were. And it wasn't so much Brett Brown, it was the management trading Michael Carter-Williams after he had Rookie of the Year, or making trades to other guys, Covington, who turned out to be a pretty good player in the NBA, and he played well for the Sixers as well. So just as they were starting to develop someone, front office sent him out. So Brett Brown's in these tough situations as a coach where they were just starting to get good, or saw some promise, and boom, we're going to trade him out. And then they got Joel Embiid, who was out for 2 years, more or less. And then finally they got Ben Simmons. And then it started to churn around. But that took 4 years to do. They just were hanking. We all call it trust the process. But eventually, once they got a team, they ran into this guy named Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. They were out. And that Philly team could have went to the championship that year. They were good. They had everything. I'll be fair to Darko on this one. I do wonder if he's going to get the Brett Brown treatment at some point if this team starts to bring in some players. But we'll see, because the game management as it stands does not look good.
Was Brett Brown a better coach in your estimation? Because I felt like Brett Brown did a much better job, although he might have empowered the wrong player.
He did when he got the talent.
Yes, but I think he empowered the wrong player at times.
You're saying he empowered Ben Simmons.
Correct.
However, he did get the best out of Ben Simmons. No one's been able
to
get the best out since.
He did.
Let's be honest.
That's true. Doc says hello.
Yeah. Because we've seen some coaches where they start over, and then you get a talent like a Joel Embiid, come in, or a Ben Simmons at that time, because Ben Simmons, without question, was number one pick that year. There was no doubt. Everyone who's talking about LSU, you saw the second coming of LeBron potentially. It didn't turn out that way, but Ben Simmons was still a pretty darn good player in Philadelphia. But Brett Brown had to suffer a lot with those process Sixers. They weren't doing any favors to help him out. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to Darko here, because I think the Raptors are a little further ahead.
I also don't
than
think
that.
he's going to be awarded that much leeway and rope.
No, he probably won't be. But Brett Brown's. All I'm saying is Brett Brown's never coached again in the NBA, and I'll leave it there.
Beyond your thoughts.
I'm just gonna be blunt about it. I don't think he coaches again in the NBA. I think for numerous reasons. Unfortunately, some things like I mentioned that might be uncomfortable for some folks, but I just going with history of how the NBA has been. It's been pretty tough on international coaches. Just being
he is
honest.
one of the. He is the first. Let's put it that way.
Second, there's the guy from Phoenix that got 10 games.
But was he from Serbia? Because I think he's the first.
No.
Yeah.
I can't remember Igor. I can't remember. My apologies to him and his family, but he got 9-10 games in Phoenix, and he ain't been seen from since.
He's an assistant now. I think maybe in Brooklyn, actually.
Brooklyn or something, right? But he ain't seen that since. I think the other part of it too that works against him as well too is I mentioned this discussion with you guys offline the other day. Raptors head coaches don't fare well after they leave, unless in this case here they've had some pedigree before they came here. Lenny Wilkins. You know, as I said before, how many coaching jobs did Sam Mitchell get afterwards? He was the coach of the year.
Casey got one. We'll say that.
Casey was a coach beforehand.
True.
He had pedigree.
True.
Right? He used to coach.
He was also an assistant on a championship
team. Yeah. So you get past those exceptions, you get guys who are just kind of getting their first deal pretty much. You know, Kevin O'Neal. Where's that dude out there breaking lamps still? Like, you know, name another one in this case here. Besides Nick Nurse.
Jay Triano is on the bench of someone's
bench right now.
as an assistant.
Never to be seen of again. Just saying. Daryl Walker. Like, we keep going down the list. God rest in peace, Brendan Malone. You know, it didn't happen. So, like, the odds of even from a Raptor history ain't looking good for Darko. That's all I got to say. And the third part, as I say, is I don't comp him so much to Brown. Let's just take someone kind of his heir apparent in this case here. I always forget his name. The coach out in Orlando. He was in the same situation. Right? His name slips my mind. Wesley. He was the same situation. Orlando stunk. Starting from the scratch, the bottom, digging out the soil and putting in seeds. And even those teams in this case, even when they're bad, they're like, okay, they play hard. And this team does play hard for them. But you can see at least, you know, the germination of something that's looking positive. Then came Wagner, then came Paulo, then came Suggs.
Jamal Mosley.
Mosley is what I'm thinking of. Yeah, slipped my mind. I don't know why Wesley.
He's there now, isn't he?
That's my point. That's my point.
But
right.
It has. I guess what you're saying is that it has to start turning around, and I agree. I'm not saying that it's for sure gone, just for people, but it's you lights starting to dim.
Right. Those pre-Franz years, because he's got the first building block. Those Orlando teams, even with Jonathan Isaac, they played hard, and they were well coached. You can see they have the talent because they have a bunch of bricklayers. They're kind of like us. They're like the junior version of us, but they play hard, man. I think he even got in the playoffs one year. You know, when Isaac's the year when we went to championship, we played them. The thing was he the coach then? I don't know if he was the coach then.
No, Steve Clifford was.
Clifford, right? So it was after that when they stripped it all down. They still play hard. And they still seem to have function like a regular team. Like, okay, I can see what they're doing here. And then the building blocks came. The problem I see with this team is I don't see that. Like, when I look at this team, is like, it's helter-skelter. I don't know what you're trying to do. By game, it's just random. It was like, okay, hey, it's your turn today. Tomorrow it might be someone else's turn. If you told me when I go into a Raptors game what the game plan is, I couldn't tell you. What are they trying to achieve? You know, I can tell you.
No, we don't know.
Yeah, what's our recipe for success? I couldn't tell you.
Well, I think a good example is like going back to the last question, the Scotty question, when he comes back and Quickly's not back, so you're putting in, I don't know, whoever, you put, because some people suggest put Davion on the bench. I don't think Darko's going to do that because they've already made it public that they want him to be at least a backup point guard on this team for as long as his tenure exists. So
Okay, well,
he's a point guard,
why
right?
are we always making deals with like these sub players? Why are we always making deals?
I don't know, but
We made a deal with Schroeder that he's gonna be a starter. That's essentially what we did.
essentially, yeah. But this is
which
my
was
point,
stupid.
right? Yes. And so it's like, but then you come back, it's like Scotty's not a point guard, and then Davion's not really a point guard, but he's gonna try. So you have no point guard. So how are we winning 5 games in a row again?
People? You know what? You know what? If you really wanted to really try to win games, this is personally what I would do.
Interesting.
When Scotty's back. Here's the thing. Shh, quiet. Don't want them to hear this. But when Scotty's back, when that second unit comes, all those Bruno Fernando minutes, goodbye. He's your backup center. If you look around the league, there's not too many great backup centers there. In this case here, Scotty can't hold his own with them. And you just say, shh. And he plays those minutes. Just when we saw the Bruno Fernando play, that Scotty Barnes, shh, don't tell him that, though. Keep it quiet, folks. Keep it quiet. All right? And he plays.
He's not a shooting guard?
No.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. And he plays those minutes there. And that same play that we just showed earlier on looks very different when number 4 is out there.
Yes.
But here's the bigger thing, too, with the second unit. Where is he playing? He's the hub of the second unit.
What do you mean? Come on, man.
Yeah, and then guess what?
No,
Jacoby comes back.
Come on now.
Right?
Don't tell them that.
I know.
So,
but here's the thing, though, and we've somewhat people keep asking about Scott here. I think we've all kind of touched on this. I'm actually not worried about him when he comes back. I'm not concerned about him on the court. I trust him. It's going to be interesting when Quickly comes back, though.
Do we want to get into the quickly of it?
Nope, not today, because it's getting late. That's a
whole pod for itself, boy.
We actually have put it. We put it off from last week as well, because I was going to get it, and then you're like, no, wait. And so now
we keep pushing it off.
So we are not.
It's kind of like a quickly recovery time. Same thing. Keep pushing it back, man. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it should be about next month by the time we get the podcast. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry, folks. We'll talk about Quickly before he's back. Not to worry. We have plenty of time. But yeah, so I mean that's it. I'll also say, I said last week, college season has started.
Boy.
Some people were saluting the flag. Some people saw, a certain Mr. Arias Bailey. Some people saw, Dylan Harper. We're going to get into that and more on Basketball Rewind. Probably not tonight because it is getting late. But any real quick 30-second comments on that? Beyond.
Oh, I just say, hey, you know my point. Ace Bailey, the eyes pop. That's all I got to say, man. I'm looking forward to that discussion, but my eyes pop when I see him. That's all I got to say. On one side note, are we doing the week that's coming?
Do we need to? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, people. Don't worry. You're on Basketball Rewind. We got you covered. So Monday, it's Monday, Thursday, and Sunday. We play the Pacers. We face the Wolves again, and we face our good old favorite team with Evan Mobley rocketing up on Sunday night in the Cavs.
Okay, we can keep moving.
Yeah, we can keep moving. But any thoughts on the record for this week, Coach? You want to go first?
And the draft quickly.
Can't see it on here, but I'll just have a drink to next week.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Coach. What about the draft, Coach? I know you've been licking your chops.
Coach is on adult beverages now, and
It's just lemonade, actually. But
I'm teasing.
I'll just say this: it's the chase better than the catch, and
Ah,
that's all I got to say about that.
Fair enough.
Like, Kitty can't answer it right now. I don't think you can. Too early. But there is something about the chase.
Fair enough. The other thing that I'll say is because a lot of people thought that the Pistons would be better than us or whatever. Well, I'll say this: because we're facing the Pistons early, even if you thought that we were better than them, when it comes down to the lottery ping pong balls, these tiebreaker games are going to be very important, which is why playing the Nets early as well, when that starts coming up, which is it's coming up actually in the next 10 games, we play them twice too. Those things start to compile, and it's like compound interest, right? You invest early, you get paid dividends later.
Mm-hmm.
This
I'll
is
be
what's
at that
happening.
Nets game too, actually, when the Nets come into Toronto. I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. Yes, I'm waiting for them to lower ticket prices, which is funny because you look at the games on TV, not today because it was not at our arena, but I am noticing there's a lot of gray seats. So,
Yeah, I literally chose the cheapest game too, which is the
nice,
Brooklyn Nets,
nice.
and it was
Um,
still an arm and a leg.
yeah.
Brooklyn in the house without a doubt.
So yeah, I think that's that. I'm not, I have an interesting discussion at some point to get into about Ace Bailey versus Cooper Flag. There's an argument for both, um, but we'll get into that and more the next time on Basketball Rewind. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like this conversation, if you like this topic, and keep it lively in the chat. We don't have Derek Lively though, but yeah. And that's really all. Salute the flag, folks. Salute the flag. Peace.